And Aaron, do you want to describe what you were saying here in this Slack message?
Yeah, building a system that needs to be reliable and stable and resilient and secure. A lot of the work is kind of like an iceberg. It's below the surface of the water. And you can't necessarily see it, but you will appreciate it if you were to interact with it. And this celebrates a milestone that so much kind of foundational work, that lower part of that iceberg is complete to a point that we can start to build on top of it. And this iceberg that we're building can rise above the surface in a way that demonstrates value. And so this message kind of marked 200,000 lines of code has been written over the last few weeks. And on that foundation of these thousands and thousands of lines of code, we can start to build the ability to upload files and get the vector embeddings for those files and chat with those files. And as this flywheel starts to spin, it will only get faster and faster and easier to get quick wins and sometimes not quick wins. And so it's a huge accomplishment, and it means that kind of I think my focus and Andy's focus and Alex's focus, just be able to start appreciating and seeing what we're doing instead of it just being kind of below the surface of the water.
And so for anyone who is watching this on YouTube later, after the all hands, what Aaron is describing here is the evolution of our smart chat system. There's a really, really big update coming, and this is the foundation for that. So Aaron, really excited to see this, and that's a great setup for what Aaron and Andi, whatever you'd like to share with us and the world. And as always, just let us know if there's anything that is not okay for us to share out publicly.
Well, I'll go ahead and get started. And so we're going to tag team here a little bit. I'm going to take the screen for a moment and get things set up here. And so I'm in presentation mode. Hopefully you can see the editor here. And what I'm going to do is push a couple of updates to this demo branch that I've been working on this morning. And so as I push these updates, what's going to happen is switch over to my web browser. So we'll go to GitHub, get into our repo. Let me zoom in a little bit here. We'll go to the pull request. I have this open pull request here. And as we scroll down, you'll be able to see that some jobs are working right now. And this is a big part of demonstrating that foundation, in that we have a Vercel job, which is building a preview of the website, or what I'm calling the web console, the app. And we're also building a backend preview right now. So these, which is going to Encore, which is the APIs and the databases and all that. And so these are two ephemeral environments that allow us to create a sandbox so we can preview this functionality that I'm working on before we merge it into any other kind of an environment. And with this, I'll go ahead and stop and hand it over to Andi. And once Andi's demo is done, we'll come back and we'll actually see these screenshots as they've been taken on this new environment. So Andi, we'll turn it over to you, and then I'll take it back in a little bit.
Cool. I don't have Aaron's way with words, so I'll borrow his iceberg metaphor. While he's been working on the big mountain iceberg, I've been working on a smaller hill-like iceberg, 50% under the surface, 50% very visible work. I've been focusing on the chat prompt. A little bit of a sneak peek on what I'm going to show today because I'm forgetful. First things first, to make a bigger impression, I'm gonna focus into the chat prompt, and we have a very cool gradient animation when the chat is focused. It looks better on dark screens than light theme. It's subtle. I hope you can see it through the frame rate of the video. And it gets a bit dimmer and smaller when you start typing into the chat box, so that it's not too distracting while you are already have stuff going on in there. I'm gonna go back to light theme because not everything is dark themed. Okay, it looks nice in the light theme too, but it's more impressive in the dark theme. The main driving force behind like the new design of the chat prompt was I wanted it to be out of the way when it's not focused, in the sense that it's always going to be on the screen. It's always fixed to the bottom of the page. So while you're interacting with other things, it shouldn't be too distracting. But as soon as you go and interact with it, it should be the main focus and it should really be delightful to use. Next thing I want to show is this chat toolbar right here. I decided to hide things that are needed when you're not working on the chat bar in the chat. These, you might be familiar with them. We have the question library, which is pretty similar to what we already have, but I think it's a bit more accessible. It has the name and you can click into it, click out of it. And it's also not going to be shown when you're focused out of it. And everything works the same as it used to. One thing that was kind of below the surface work was setting it up so that we can do much more with the chat prompt if we want to. We'll have opportunities to make it a much more rich text editing experience. A quick example of what I mean is we could support markdown shortcuts if we want to. We can make it easier for users to interact with like bullet points, some other types of like very common text-based work that we might want to do. And we shouldn't get too crazy with this because the LLMs still take just raw text. So inside the chat prompt in a nicer way. Next up, cool. Next up is the slash menu, and we've all been using Notion, so we should be familiar with the slash menu. This is another opportunity for us to add more functionality to the chat prompt without having it be in your face. So users could, have maybe predefined things. Maybe we'll show them some relevant things based on the context of what they're writing. For now, I have a few dummy things. For example, the prompts from the question library. I can click on one of them. This is keyboard navigatable, by the way. Just a small brag. And you can also perform actions through that slash. The upload document doesn't do anything right now, but yeah, they can filter and they can select actions. Next up, I would like to talk about mentions because we'll have multiplayer functionality and maybe we'll also integrate mentions into what our LLMs can do. So it's very similar to Slack. If you press the add key, you're able to then cycle through some people that I've added as dummy data, and then we can render them nicely as a kind of like a pill, like on iOS, to show that we know who you're talking about, and it's gonna stay as that same person. So maybe if a user, instead of writing a name, they don't know if the LLM really understands who it is, we can provide extra functionality with tagging people. There's also autocomplete now. I want to preface this by saying it's very basic and I've only trained it on 2 sentences. So don't get your hopes up that it's completely ready, but it does work. And I just want to show you a proof of concept. Maybe perform. So it's kind of the type ahead autocomplete that you see on Gmail, for example. You can press tab to have it autocomplete based on what you're writing. These are the 2 sentences I've trained it on, by the way, so don't ask me to write anything else. I also want to show something that we might do in the future. It's not something that I think we'd have time to do now. But that's highlighting meaning into the chat editor. So for example, if the user writes some type of key phrase, some keywords that our LLMs might understand as being something important, we could show early feedback to the user that it's something that's important. For example, we have the voice feature that we would want to do. If you write in the voice off, maybe it will be highlighted in the text box to show that it's actually it has meaning. We know that it means something important, and we know that the LLM is going to consider it important. Yeah, that's everything, everyone. And the timer is up. I'll give it back to Aaron.
Andi, before you give it back to Aaron, I would just love to get any reactions from the crew about what you're seeing today, because it's the first time that we're all seeing it. Who's got something?
Love the slash memories. I'm guessing Drozio is very happy as well with the shortcuts there.
+1 to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I think just to see things we hadn't even dreamed of or kind of felt impossible before. And even if they're in their early stages, like they're here from the beginning. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, +1 to that. Anyone else have any initial reactions before we pass it back over?
I'll share. I'm incredibly happy to see. This is the first time I've seen it too, and Andi has my full trust and confidence. But this is a very challenging problem because there's so much complexity and functionality that this box needs to provide, and we don't want to overwhelm users by making it feel like you've stepped into a 747 airline cockpit, with, all the dials and gauges, and so I think you've really taken the guidance of unfolding complexity. And you've ran with it, and I couldn't be more delighted to see this unfolding complexity. The building blocks that we see here, for example, in the voice of, you can imagine the same techniques that Andi has applied here working for tags. When you mention a tag, that the system can recognize it and know and communicate to the user that it's not just text, but we understand. And that's one of the feedbacks I've heard several times as we've listened to users, is that sometimes they worry or they wonder, does the system understand them? And these little subtle cues, I think, are going to go a long way to helping Storytell stand out from all the other systems that are out there. And it's not just a pretty UI. It's that the functionality and the capabilities that we offer are going to be deeper and richer than other systems out there. And so I'm very pleased, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your work here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I want to +1 to that, Andi. It's a very, very elegant design that you're creating. Could you actually pop your screen up for one more second? Because for the crew and for anybody who's watching this after the fact, we have something that we can start to get feedback on now. So this is a perfect example of the beginnings of what's coming that we could start to get feedback from users around. And also, when we're doing this, or if you're watching this later, I just want to give a little bit of context about what you're seeing at the bottom versus what you're seeing at the top. And if somebody's just watching this, they might think, oh, is this what Smart Chat is going to be up here at the top? So maybe Andi or Aaron, you could describe a little bit about the difference between the kind of like craftsmanship that you're putting into this prompt versus what a user should think about when they look at this top part.
Yeah, I would say that top part is really not even something I would show a user. It's just a placeholder so we could have a button that allows you to log in. And so one of the things that, one of my philosophies is that it's okay to be embarrassed by what we don't have, but it's not okay to be embarrassed by what we do have. And an example of that is this chat prompt. We can't even ship the product without the chat prompt. Is it okay if that chat prompt doesn't have multiplayer abilities for 2 people to type in the same box? Yeah, that's a capability we don't have. It's okay to be embarrassed if we don't have something, but when we choose to ship something and release something, we should be proud of it. And this chat prompt is a feature that's in development. The top part is really just something stubbed for developers to have something to anchor to. And so over the coming weeks, you'll see the love in that chat prompt kind of grow to the rest of the UI. And that's really the turning point of switching to building features versus what's below the surface of the iceberg.
Amazing to see this come alive. Thank you so much, Andy. As you can imagine, I've got 1,000 questions and ideas for us to discuss more.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciative about what you've built, +1 to what everyone said, and especially just seeing everything come alive here. So with that, Aaron, I suppose it's back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take it away.
So switch gears here.
And just in terms of a time check, we're spending a little bit longer here, but feels really worth it to me, and we don't have any learning, so we can go a little bit faster through the rest of it once we're done here. So let's give it a couple more minutes.
And so here we have the pull request, and we can see that a bunch of jobs were performed. And so as we peek into the iceberg, and I won't spend a lot of time here, but I'm very excited about what this means, because this means we have an ephemeral environment that we can build and throw away for every pull request. So we can get feedback from people well before it's ever merged into a durable environment like dev, stage, or production. And so what happened here is we have our Vercel job has deployed a preview of the UI to this ephemeral sandbox environment that we can discard and is incredibly cheap. We built our backend services, and we also deployed our backend services. And we also have this Vercel preview comments, which means that as I go, say, into this is our build on Vercel, and I can visit the site. This is our preview site, and you can see it looks a little bit different. There's no persistent prompt. Let me zoom it in a little bit. And so you'll notice that there's this special toolbar down at the bottom. This would allow, say, somebody to add a comment and say, hey, this blah, 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 whatever the feedback is, right? And so say somebody like Erica or Drodio or whoever we share this with, this is not a gated environment. Anybody with a link can come in here. And we can get their feedback and have a conversation directly on the button that is being previewed. And so that is very exciting to me. Now, one of the other things I want to show as I get back to that pull request is the actual backend system. And so you open up a new environment here, and we'll get over to the Storytell platform. And we're working with Alex to make these durable environments now for dev, stage, prod, and other environments. But one of the neat things we have here are these, again, PR environments. These are those ephemeral environments. And so this is pull request number 16, which represents the environment that I just showed you that's backing Vercel. And so as we come in here, we can see that we're building it, we're testing it, we're running various tests. And so I would say we have a very good engineering hygiene in this project. And as we start to make requests against this environment, we can also see all of our tracing information, how many requests are happening, the latency, the timing, all of that kind of stuff is all in here. And so I think that's very exciting. Now, one other thing that I want to show is just kind of the local development experience. And so one of the things that we've been investing in quite a bit is our own tooling. Or leveraging other tooling wherever we can. And so Encore is a great example. I'm going to clear out my local database here. And so it's very easy for us to get into any kind of a state that we need to, whether we're going to load data to get it into a certain state or erase data. So I could say, try signing up all over again. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and run the backend systems. And you'll see Encore is going to make sure that the database is where we need it to be. It's going to start this kind of local environment. And I'm going to switch back to the terminal here and open up another one. And now I'm going to run this tool Mage, which is a tool that we have written that automates, say, client generation, so that we're always creating our TypeScript SDK every time we go to work on the front end, which is a way of making sure that the contracts between the backend system and the front end system, they're generated for us automatically and they always match. And now that I have the front end and the back end working, and they're up on my local machine, and again, this is where I would test it before I push it up to that preview environment, which once merged would become the dev environment. Now I can go over to my local environment, and I can run the code that I've been working on. And the small little thing that I want to demonstrate today is two things. First, I want to change my language to the German language. And for the demonstration here, I have it set up so that the word my organization is going to change. And so when I click this, you can see it's now mine organization. I think I said that right. And so anybody on the call who speaks a language other than English, you will be conscripted into translating so we can have some other languages. So appreciate your help in advance. And this is one of those, again, iceberg type tasks that all the work to make sure that we can swap out dictionaries and format numbers of the European style or the American style. If we don't do that now, we'll end up never doing it. But I'm optimistic that this can open up Storytell to a lot of markets and a lot of users so that they can use Storytell in a way that's most comfortable for them. And now the last thing that I want to show is just this simple little sign-in button, this little button that has been the focus of all my attention. As I click on that button, I have now signed in using my Storytell account using Google. And it might not sound like a lot, but really what's exciting are these three IDs here. This is my user ID for the account that I've just created. This is my organization for the account that the organization that I've just created through my sign up. And the TID here is for my tenant ID. And this is just the small little evidence that shows that the data model is at work, that we can have a tenant, say a large organization like Adobe. And within Adobe, they may have subsidiaries that they've acquired or different organizations. Say maybe they have so many people in marketing and so many people in engineering that they need their own administrators and things like that. And so a tenant is the top level. Maybe you can think of it as like the billable entity. An organization is something that a day-to-day user would be aware of. That's something I might invite you to and form a team within. And then finally, I have my own user ID here. Now, there's a ton of other stuff that I haven't found a really good way to show yet. But as we take a look at, say, what is a user, you can see there's all this information that's at work here. And one small little thing is just like the lifecycle state. So that we might, and I don't have code that's doing this yet, which is why you can see these are in a dark gray color versus these are in this kind of pretty little pastel orange. But the plumbing has been put into place so that we can flag a user for abuse, for example. And so there's a lot of things as this iceberg starts to come up above the surface that are just going to be easier and easier to start layering on functionality. And so I'm very proud of the work that's been put into place. And I think many of the questions that I anticipate coming up or the conversations that I've heard, there's already plumbing in the ground, kind of sunk into that concrete foundation that we build the house on, that will make it rather easy to build upon. One small example is the concept of a slug, so that users can have a vanity URL for their own account, or a vanity URL for their project, or the file, or things like that. Mm-hmm. And something else that I've heard in requests that I haven't spent much time on, somebody once mentioned to me that we wanted the ability to have proxies for users. And so things like that are, well, I guess it's not in this file, but plumbing for something like that is in here too. So that, say, somebody in customer success can, with approval of the customer, sign into their account on the behalf of, and any changes that they make will actually be reflected that it was Erica on behalf of Burge. And so you can imagine like both of their pictures on that change log. And so there's a lot of stuff that's been sunk deep into the ground here. And I'm very much looking forward to rising above the surface of the water.
So good. Thank you, Aaron, and Andi for that update. And Aaron, I don't know if you have the ability to show the screenshots that were captured.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing right there. Yeah, let me do
and
that.
Maybe while you're doing that, I will also just give a rich analogy about this concept of ephemeral environments, because it's a really important thing. And the analogy that I would give is, let's imagine that we're putting on a play and we have a stage. And when there's a stage and between acts, the people that are wearing all black come out and they set up the background and they basically prepare for the scene. You can think about that as the Vercel part of the ephemeral environment. We're creating a scene, but not just that. Let's imagine someone's going to be popping out of a cake, or maybe there's going to be like the white smoke that comes out. And so there's a lot of plumbing and other things, and that's like the encore part of that ephemeral environment. It's like we can prep for that scene, and then we can send that scene to a subset of users. In fact, we might have two different scenes for two different audiences that we're just spinning up and making, and we're saying, hey, what do you think about this? Give us some comments, put some comments on this, and then we can break them down quickly, and then we can learn from them really quickly, and then we can create the more durable thing based on what we learn. And so this concept of like spinning up not just the front end but the back end of these ephemeral environments, that is an incredibly powerful concept. And Aaron, I don't know if you would agree that I described that accurately there.
Yeah, I think it was an excellent description, and I couldn't underscore the power of these ephemeral environments more. They are so easy and cheap for us to throw up and leave up and get feedback. And that's, I know that was one of the first things I heard when I joined, is that the team's performance and their pace really struggled from not having just some of these kind of capabilities in place.
Yep. Okay.
And so
the last part here, go ahead.
Yeah, so here I've gone to the job and I've downloaded the screenshots and I've opened them up here, and you can see there's one screenshot for dark mode and one screenshot for light mode. And so every time we take a screenshot, we'll always take both. And right now, these screenshots are only available attached to the pull request that generated them. But again, once Alex finishes our dev environment, that'll be the first opportunity we have to also save these to an address, kind of like how Gerodio uses those Go URLs, where you can just always go to, say, /homepage.jpg, and you'll know that if you reference that, you'll always have the latest homepage for that environment.
Mhm.
Awesome.
And I should also just touch on one more thing as we just talk about the kind of hygiene of what we're doing here. The way that we're creating these screenshots is with a tool called Playwright, which is something that Microsoft has authored and made as open source. And this application isn't just used for writing tests, or sorry, for writing screenshots. It's also used for writing tests. And so this is kind of a byproduct of just us testing the application with automation as well. And so in the same motion as getting this screenshot application online, we've also got the infrastructure in place for us to write an automated test that on every single pull request is verified that that button says, choose my organization in English and choose my organization in Spanish, or whatever tests we put in place. And so the snowball is growing here.
So good. Erica, yeah.
Yeah, so many things. One, to everyone who has QA'd our product, which I think is everyone, how does it feel to hear about automated tests? I hope that feels pretty awesome to not have to be the machine. I have like so many feelings. I'm like trying not to cry. I'm so happy about this. I just feel